A very good morning to all of you. This is Ashmir speaking on behalf of IXPOE, and today we are going to cover a very important topic, that is blood and the various types of circulation which involves blood. Before understanding what is blood and why do we need blood in our body, we need to understand actually what is blood. Right. So moving on, first of all, let us answer a question. What is blood? Blood is actually a transporter system. That is, it is a type of vehicle which we have in our body. Now, what is the need of this transporter system or the vehicle which we have in our body? Now, what happens? There are a number of nutrients in a body, which have to be transported in our body, and also a number of waste products being produced by different cells of the body which have to be transported from one part of the body to another. Hence, for the transportation of these nutrients which is being produced in a body, and also for the elimination of these products or the noxious products from the body to outside, we need a transporter system, we need a vehicle which can solve our purpose, and thus arises the need of blood in our body. Hence, from this concept we understand that blood is actually a circulatory system. Hence, blood is a circulatory system which circulates in our body. So, the blood which is circulating in a body at all times, is it the only component of the circulatory system in a body? Absolutely not. Hence, we see that the circulatory system of our body is composed of blood plus the blood vessels, which includes the small arteries, the veins, the capillaries, further the arterioles and the venules, and last but not the least, the pumping organ, that is the heart, which is four-chambered in mammals. Right. So we saw here that the circulatory system is made up of blood, the blood vessels, and the heart, all of which work in synchronization, work in coordination with each other to bring about the various functions of the circulatory system in our body. Now, as we all know, the blood is red in color. But do we all know how does the blood taste? Though unconsciously, sometimes what happens, there are injuries, there may be injuries in a mouth, and we may be able to taste blood. But if I ask you in particular what is the taste of blood, you might falter and you may not be knowing the answer to this. Hence, to those of you who did not know it, the blood is saltish in taste. Why? Because it has sodium, chlorine, and many other such inorganic contents, because of which it is slightly saltish in taste. So this blood, which forms an important component of our circulatory system, forms the topic of concentration for our class today. So the blood is composed of two main components. The first component of the blood, the matrix of the blood. And this matrix of the blood is called as plasma. The other component is the cellular, or the corpuscular part. So the other component is the cellular or the corpuscular part. Now, what do we mean by this matrix part and the cellular or the corpuscular part? To explain this, we take a small example of, say, an ocean or a water body. Now, in a water body, say a lake or a river, we see that the whole of the water body is full of water droplets. There will be water granules all over this water body. Among these water droplets or the granules, we see small stones, big stones, fishes. Sometimes, if you're in a water ocean, we see sharks, big fishes, small fishes, and many more things. So this water, which is forming the basic substance, which is forming the ground substance, which is covering the whole of the ocean or the water, this is nothing but the matrix. This is a matrix. And this matrix in blood is called as plasma. However, the other parts, like the fishes, the stones, the sharks, and all other things which are contained in this ground part, which are contained in this matrix of the blood, are nothing but the cellular or the corpuscular part. So, in the matrix of blood, which is called as the plasma, the cells are present, and these cells are not of one type. These cells are of various types. To enumerate a few, these are the red blood cells, the RBCs, the white blood cells, and the platelets. Now this plasma, very interesting to know, this will be not red in color, but this will be yellow in color. So you might say, though the whole of the ground substance of the blood, which is forming the majority part of the blood, is yellow in color, why does the blood appear red? Very interesting. If, dear friends, this is due to the presence of a red blood cell which is present in this blood. So this matrix of blood called as the plasma is yellow in color, and most of it, that is 90% of it, is composed of water. However, the next 10% is composed of other nutrients like food, vitamins, minerals, blood proteins like the fibrinogen. Now, this blood protein called the fibrinogen is very important for the clotting of blood. Now you will say, another question which comes to the mind is, blood is a circulatory system which needs to flow for the transport of materials from one part of the body to the other. So why do we need a protein? Why do we need a substance in the blood for the clotting of the blood? Why? The sole reason for this is that, say, suppose you have an injury. Suppose you fell down, you have an injury, there are bruises in your body and it starts bleeding. Now, if the natural system or the natural mechanism of the body doesn't act in such a way that it clots the blood so that extra blood doesn't flow out of your body, then what will happen? In some time or some minutes or some hours, the whole of the blood will be drained out of your body, and this will ultimately result in death. So for emergency situations, we need to have a factor, we need to have a protein in the blood which will ensure that not excess of blood is lost from the body by a process called clotting of the blood. And this is being brought about by a protein present in the plasma called as the fibrinogen. Right. Apart from these, even the waste products that include urea and carbon dioxide are also present in the matrix of the blood. Right. Moving on with the cellular or the corpuscular part. We know this forms the cellular or the corpuscular part and is a very important part of the blood. Among these, the first one in the cellular or the corpuscular part these are of three types. The first one are the RBC or the red blood cells. The next one are the WBC or the white blood cells. And the last but not the least are the platelets. So we will quickly see what are the function and some important characteristics about all of these. The red blood cell are also called as the erythrocytes. Now these are biconcave, disc shaped. You know what is a disc? So these are biconcave disc shaped. These have a nucleus at the immature stage. However, when the cell becomes mature, the cell lacks nucleus. That is, initially, when the cell is there is a nucleus, but as the cell develops and gets more mature, the nucleus is lost from the cell. These are produced by our bone marrow. Now, where are these bone marrow present? These bone marrow are present in the middle, that is in the hollow center of the long bones in our body. Now, the number of these in our body. Yes. The RBC are present in a number of 4.5 to 5 million per cubic millimeter of the blood. Let me remind you that the number of this RBC is 4.5 to 5 million per cubic millimeter of the blood, not the whole of the organism of the body. And in a human body on an average, 5.5 to 6 liters of blood are present in circulation. So you can just imagine how many red blood cells will be present in our whole body. Apart from these, one more important characteristic of RBC is the presence of a pigment called hemoglobin. Presence of pigment called hemoglobin. And this hemoglobin is responsible for carrying of oxygen from the lungs to the different tissues and also for the other functions. It is this pigment hemoglobin which is red in color and gives the blood its characteristic color. Moving on, we move on to the next component of the blood, which is the WBC, which are also called as the leukocytes. These are also very important. These do have a nucleus. However, they are not present in as much number as the RBCs were present. In fact, these are present in the number 8,000 per cubic millimeter of the blood. Now, what is the function? Their function is defense. defense and immune function. That is, when they are being acted upon by some foreign antigen or foreign bacteria or foreign microbes, these help in identifying those foreign antigens or those foreign people and help in destruction of them so that the body is not acted upon by those foreign antigens. These WBC are basically of two types. They are granulocyte and agranulocyte. This classification is based on the characteristic that the granulocytes contain granular crystals or granular substances in the cytoplasm. These granulocytes are further being divided into neutrophil, eosinophil, and basophil. However, the agranulocytes, these do not have granules in the cytoplasm, and they are further divided into the monocyte and the lymphocyte. Moving on from the WBC, we come to the last part of the cellular component of the blood, which are the platelets. The platelets are round in shape. These are round in shape and of a very smaller size. They range in the number of 2 to 3 lakhs per cubic millimeter of the blood. 2 to 3 lakhs per cubic millimeter of the blood. And their main function is prevent blood clotting. That is, their main function is prevent excessive flow of blood by formation of clot. You must have heard about dengue fever, which is most commonly occurring in north countries like in north states like Delhi these days. Now, what is happening here? The number of platelet count is getting reduced to a very less level, say 5,000 to 8,000 or 12,000. So, when the platelet count is getting so reduced, what happens even if there's a normal injury, the patient will bleed too much and the internal organ starts bleeding. Hence, the platelet count has to be restored to normal state for the normal functioning of the body and the organism. So, these platelets thus play a very important role. Thus, these were some important characteristics about the circulatory